My name is Yair Davidiy. I'm speaking to you from the land of Israel. We are now about to discuss the possible Hebraic or Jewish antecedents of Donald J. Trump, the President-elect of the USA. Now, this following talk is of interest. You'll hear things you probably were not aware of, that are worth hearing of. And most of it is based on solid facts. Some of it, by the nature of the subject, is speculation, but it's interesting at all events. So bear with us, listen to us, because it should be worth your while. The ancestors of Donald J. Trump, Donald John Trump, came from Germany. They came from a place known as Karlstadt, in the Rhineland-Palatinate, in a region that was then geographically part of Bavaria, but it was somewhat separate, and at that time Germany as we now know it did not exist, though it later was incorporated within the Second Reich of the German entity. And he was born in Karlstadt, a place called Karlstadt. The original name of the family was Drumpf. Drumpf, we're not certain what the name means, but it has been suggested it actually means it is derived from word meaning drum. Perhaps the ancestors were drum players. What we do know is that the name was changed to Trump. The name of the family was changed to Trump, and from this family, Donald John Trump emerged. The name Donald in Gaelic, in the Scottish language known as Gaelic, which is similar to Irish, Donald means ruler of the world. Domhanil means ruler of the world. That is what his name Donald means in Gaelic. The middle name, John, is short for the Hebrew Yohanan. Yohanan means graced by God, favored by God. What does Trump mean? So the name Trump has several different meanings. The main meaning, the major, I wish to emphasize this, the fact that the name Trump, the major meaning or the main means to win. It is probably from the word triumphant, to triumph, to victor, and in English it means the winning card, the card that gives you the winning hand. That is what Trump means. There is another connotation of the name less commonly known, but also existed, meaning to play the fool, also possibly deriving from trumpet or something similar to blow the trumpet, to make a fool of oneself. And Donald J. Trump has all of the aspects of this name. He has been graced by God. He has had a good life on the whole, as far as we can tell. Is successful. He is now the place to become the ruler of the greatest entity in the world, the USA. And also he has been, as we said, graced by the Lord Almighty. We noted that a similar word, trompe, in Old French, can also mean to deceive. So perhaps we shall still be deceived. We may be mistaken. We think that Donald J. Trump will be a good ruler, God willing, of the USA and of the world. He will be good for the Jewish people, good for the American people, good for the whole world. But you never know. Things can change. So these possibilities encompassed in the name that he has, or the original meaning of this name. It's worth noting that the Heinz family, Heinz ketchup, the Heinz family also came from the same township, Karlstadt. And the Trump family and the Heinz family are distantly related to each other. The Heinz family were German. They came to America. They produced the famous ketchup and all kinds of sauces and condiments and so on. And they always had good relations with the Jewish community, especially the Jewish religious community. They emphasized on Pesach, on Passover time, when their products were not kosher for Pesach. They announced it, and they put up posters about it, and because of this, it was good advertising for them, because the Jewish public henceforth looked upon them favourably because of these announcements. The present woman known as the inheritor of the Heinz fortune, Teresa Heinz Kerry, she is married to John Kerry, who was the US Secretary of State, but she is not a physical descendant of the Heinz family. She is the widow of John Heinz III. She herself is from Mozambique and is of Portuguese descent. So worth noting that John Kerry is the US Secretary, was the US Secretary of State. John Kerry, through the parents of his father, through his paternal grandparents, is descended from Jews from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and he somehow took this name Kerry, which is actually the name of a county in southwest Ireland. So, his grandparents converted to Christianity from Judaism. So he himself physically is descended from Jews, and he bears an Irish name. So this is somewhat ironic because we find in the ultra-Orthodox neighbourhood of Jerusalem, Mea Shearim, which is known as the bastion of Jewish orthodoxy all over the world. Mea Shearim was founded in the 1870s and developed amongst its early foundational population were two brothers from Ireland who had converted to Judaism, and a good portion of the veteran inhabitants of this neighbourhood and its surroundings and are descended from these Irish converts to Judaism. And now they all have Jewish names or Hebrew names, so it's somewhat ironic that here we have people who are of Irish descent who are identified as Jews, as the ultra-Jews, and they themselves are descended from Irish Catholics, whereas we have someone else who's descended from Jews bearing an Irish name who converted to Christianity, and he held the post of US Secretary of State. So that's the way history develops, that's the way how things go. People switch around, things change. There are interchanges of populations and of identities, and that is also connected to the subject that we are speaking of. John Kerry married the heiress of the Heinz family. So it's not much of a connection, but it exists and was worth mentioning to emphasise this point of interchanges of populations of peoples and of identities, which is something that we attempt to specialise in. So the Trump family came from Karlstadt in the Rhine-Palatinate region of Western Germany. This region was known for its grapes, its good quality grapes and wines, and traditionally the Trump family that owned a vineyard, that was their occupation. They were primarily growers of vineyards, of wines, and producers of wines. And this is interesting because in the past, Jews were also prominent in this area, in this same occupation. Not far away, somewhat to the west in France, but not that far away. We have the region of Champagne, and there the famous Jewish Rabbi Rashi, 1040 to 1105 CE, like in the early Middle Ages. Rashi was the most famous Jewish commentator of them all, so he owned a vineyard. And Jews were in that region, and they did grow grapes, and they also produced wine, and they were quite prominent in this region of northern France and western Germany, and then the borders were somewhat more elastic than they are today, or they later became, and so the populations interchanged, and Jews were there, and Jews were dominant in the region, in the wine industry, but the Gentiles attacked them and persecuted them and massacred them and drove them out, but then brought them back, but only on condition that they not occupy themselves with agriculture, that they not own farming land, that they stay in the ghettos and occupy themselves with money lending, or only those occupations that Gentiles did not want to occupy themselves with. So the Jewish connection with the wine trade was lost. But it could be that descendants of the original Jewish viticulturists, that is wine growers, remained in the region, and that they intermarried and intermixed with the Gentile population, because very often in these persecutions Jews were given the choice of converting to Christianity or being killed or having their children taken from them and brought up as Christians at all events. And even though a lot of Jews became martyrs and allowed themselves to be killed rather than become Christians, there were some who were not so strong and who gave in. And so the ancestors of the Trump family may have come from such origins. This region of Western Germany and Southern Germany was a region that was once occupied by descendants of those 10 tribes, especially from the tribe of Manasseh, who intermixed with the local peoples, but somehow they remained separate. They retained a division between themselves and their neighbours, and later on they moved en masse, or picked themselves up and moved to the USA and other regions. We have proven that those who went to the USA were different from those who stayed behind, and they themselves recognised this, and the Germans themselves recognised this, and studies were made at the time based on physical dimensions of skulls and so on, whatever they used, and they themselves recognised that the people emigrants from Germany were different from the people who remained. And this confirms our impression that those who were Israelites took themselves up, picked themselves up and went away and came to the USA. So this is also worth noting, and they took themselves and they came away from the same regions that the Trump family had dwelt in. It's also worth noting that in the Second World War, even though from this region there were a lot of Nazis, and they all supported Hitler, as did most of the German population towards the beginning of the Second World War, before Hitler was elected, most of the people in that region were supporters of the Catholic and the Socialist parties. They were not Nazis. It was not a strong area of Nazi supporters. And even though they supported Germany in the Second World War, they fought for her, and apparently believed somehow or other in what they were doing, when the Allies began to bomb Western Germany and those regions, they expressed sentiments to the effect that this was a divine punishment upon them for how they had treated the Jews. So this shows a change of heart. It shows a certain potentiality that did not exist in the rest of Germany, a certain liberality of considerations which may indicate a partial Israelite input into their genealogies. The grandfather of Donald John Trump was Frederick Trump. He was born in 1869. He was born in Karlstadt. When he was 16, he ran away to America. At first, he lived for several years on the East Coast, but after 6 years, he went to Washington, went west to the Washington State, to the gold rushes, and after that into Klondike in Canada, where he ran saloons. And he ran these saloons, he moved around, and one of his partner towards the end was a person named Levine. Levine is a Jewish name, it means Levi, and so this was his first successful business enterprise, and he began his fortune through this association with Levine. Levine apparently had drinking problems, the partnership broke up, and Frederick Trump attempted to return to Germany, but they would not accept him in Bavaria, which was the state which controlled the Karlstadt, where the area he had been born in. They would not accept him there because they considered him a draft dodger, someone who had evaded his military service, and therefore was not worthy of being accepted back into the country. And all of it, after making this attempt to return and not being unsuccessful at it, Frederick took a woman to wife, Elizabeth Christ, that was the name, Elizabeth Christ, and they returned to the USA. In the USA, Frederick Trump Jr. was born. He was the father of Donald. And Frederick was born in America and he married Mary MacLeod from the Isle of Lewis in Scotland, and they both died when they passed away. They both died. They both passed away in the care of a Jewish nursing home, which is worth noting. To Trump's business relationships and so on at the outbreak of the First World War, it's not popular to be considered German in America, so the family Frederick Jr., that is, began to claim that he was of Swedish origin, and Donald also grew up with this. Donald also grew up with this, and he was his father. Due to his father, he also had to say that he was of Swedish origin, even though at times he expressed dislike of it, of having to say this. In an autobiography which was published in 1987, Donald repeated the claim that his father came from Sweden. Later, Donald had a change of heart. He began to say that he was proud of his origins, proud of having come from Karlstad. In 1999, Donald served as Grand Marshal, that is the ceremonial head, of the German-American Student Parade in New York City. On another occasion, in 2016, Donald was the Grand Marshal of the annual Salute to Israel Parade. In other words, he had a foot in both camps, one could say. Fred Trump, the father of Donald, gave to Jewish causes. Fred Trump, the father of Donald, he gave money to Jewish causes, Jewish religious causes. He had friends and business associates amongst the Jewish community, and he gave money to Jewish ultra-Orthodox establishments. The elder brother of Donald was known as Fred, also called Frederick, like his father and his grandfather, is nicknamed Freddie. Freddie joined a Jewish fraternity at the college he went to, which incidentally had a quota against Jews, where Jews were not that popular in his time, but he went to this college and he claimed to be Jewish, that his parents were Jews from Germany, and he joined a Jewish fraternity at this college, which is interesting. The mother of the family, Mary Ann MacLeod, who became Trump, Mary Ann MacLeod. She came from the island of Lewis in the Hebrides, Scotland. And the name Lewis is one of those names that they have in the British Isles. The Jews often adopt other names such as Davis, which Jews like to borrow. There are certain names that Jews who come to the British Isles take to themselves because they sound more English, and other names that they don't and they keep away from. So one of the names that is a favourite amongst Jews is Lewis. But Mary Ann MacLeod was Scottish. She was not Jewish. She was born in the Isle of Lewis in the Hebrides. But the Hebrides are named after the Hebrews. The word Hebrides and the Hebrew root is found throughout the Celtic regions. It's found throughout Ireland. Even a nickname for Ireland is Hibernia. It's found throughout Ireland. It was found throughout Scotland. It was found throughout all the Celtic areas in the west. And this root Hebrew or Heber actually means Hebrew, and it is how they in the west they pronounce the Hebrew word for Hebrew. Eber or Eber became Eber or Heber, and so we have the Hebrides islands from this same root. We also have a tradition that neighbouring peoples saw in this region of Scotland and the Hebrides and Orkney Islands, people who were descended from Jews and who practiced aspects of the Jewish religion. We have documents on this. So there was a Jewish and a Hebrew component in this region, which is significant. Nevertheless, we should not be too complacent. Apparently Donald is ambivalent concerning his German ancestry, and he has recently said that he's proud of it, which he may be. You never know, you never can tell. Recently he built a very prestigious golf course in Scotland, And the logo of this golf course has a lion, and underneath the lion he has a double-headed eagle. And this double-headed eagle was the symbol of the Holy Roman Empire, which was actually German, one of the First Reich, the first German empire, ruled over most of Europe, and it is significant in German nationalist thought. This might be a coincidence. Donald may, for all we know, have had nothing whatsoever to do with choosing this logo. But nevertheless, it's worth noting that the logo exists and it has this association. At all events, Donald Trump, he grew up with Jews, he associated with Jews, his business links with the Jews, he employs Jews. He's even been quoted as saying that he prefers to employ religious Jews than anyone else. He is quoted as saying, "The only kind of people I want counting my money are little short guys that wear yarmulkes," that is yarmulkes, Jewish head caps, skull caps, also known as kippahs. Little short guys, apparently in New York a lot of Jews are smaller stature, or used to be. Little short guys that wear yarmulkes every day. That is what he has been quoted as saying, and this coincides, or this is compatible with other aspects and other facts that we know concerning him. One of his daughters, perhaps the most famous member of his family, is Ivanka Trump. Ivanka Trump is married to Jared Kushner, who is an Orthodox religious Jew. She herself converted to Judaism. She converted to Orthodox Judaism in 2009. They have 3 children. And Ivanka is known to give money to Jewish charities. She gives money to Jewish ritual baths that women use, and also to Chabad, the outreach Jewish organization, and also to Hatzalah, which is an emergency medical service staffed by Jews and managed by Jews, which is mainly dedicated to helping the Orthodox Jewish community in Jewish neighborhoods, even though it helps anyone who's in trouble as well. Ivanka observes the Sabbath, and she keeps glut kosher. She's quite strict concerning the dietary laws, and she makes a good impression, as does Jared Kushner and the rest of their family. We also have other members of the family of the Donald Trump. We have Donald Trump Jr., who's also important in the family. All of them are important in the family. With Donald Trump Jr., the son of Donald, is married to a model, Vanessa K. Hayden. Vanessa K. Hayden Trump is of Jewish and Danish ancestry. Another son, Frederick Trump. Eric is another son of Donald. Eric married Lara Leah UNESCO, and a crystal embellished chuppah, that is a Jewish marriage canopy. Apparently the ceremony may have been Reform Jewish, but it was intended to represent the traditional Jewish one. It was intended to be Jewish, and apparently she identifies herself, is brought up as considering herself Jewish, and that is what she apparently is. So there we have out of the 5 children of Donald Trump, we have 3 of them who are married. The other 2 are still young. There's Tiffany, who's unmarried, also Baron, who's a young boy, and they are not married, but the 3 ones who are married either to Jews or to people of mixed or partial Jewish origin. So that is worth noting. Most of his children, those who are married, have married people who would be considered Jews in the eyes of outsiders. Donald says that the Bible is his favorite book. He is officially, his parents belong to the Reformed Church in America, and he himself is associated both with the Reformed Church and with the Presbyterian Church, but he is also close to Jews. He's close to Israel. He often expresses very strong support for Israel. In some ways he is more pro-Israel than a lot of Jewish people in the USA. He is even more pro-Israel than some of the Jews who live in the state of Israel. At least that is the impression he gives, and that corresponds, conforms with what we know about him. It is compatible with what we know about him. As we said, we don't know for sure. The future will tell us, but all the indications are that he is a good person. He would be good for America, God willing. He also strongly identifies with the cause of the USA, understands the USA needs to be a country that needs to become great again. And he also understands instinctively that the Jewish people, what is good for the Jewish people, is also good for America. What is good for the state of Israel is good for the USA. And that there is no daylight between them. The USA and the state of Israel are two halves of one whole. They are two halves of the Hebrew nation, of the Israelite tribes. And that is what we also need to internalize. We also have to learn this subject, study it, internalize it, and do what we can to spread the message. May the Lord God of Israel bless you. Thank you.